In this episode, we discuss all things Alexander Ovechkin. Will he win the Rocket this year? When he will surpass Wayne Gretzky for most goals scored in the NHL? Break down the Blackhawks scoring woes, all the changes, as well how many games the LA Kings Brendan Lemieux should be suspended for biting Brady Tkachuk. Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey. I'm your host, Peter Bojaranov, and the mic is always on. It's your one-stop weekly shop for expert analysis on every single team. We are a fun hockey community, bringing everyone together. You can find me on Twitter now at pbojaranov, Bojarinov. V as in Victor. Formerly at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. That's Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag at Jablam Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on those three dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with 3 hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, www.jablamsports.com, for our podcasts and even game notes for each episode. You'll get all the links to everything we mentioned on this show, including guests. We've even got articles this year and much more content weekly. For our podcasts, click on podcasts on our website and then hockey on this show specifically. It's time for this week's Trending Now. Joining to discuss what everyone is talking about. I couldn't get Samantha Pell on. Her Wi-Fi is not great. Where are the Capitals playing right now, Courtney?
So they're going to be playing in Florida. They have a game Tuesday night against the Florida Panthers. So surprising, downtown or down southern United States, no Wi-Fi, huh?
Yeah, well, Samantha's busy with the Washington Post, so the Wi-Fi isn't great. Obviously, in some places. Oh man, I wish I was at South Beach right now. That would be great. The weather would be much better. We've got snow already here in Canada. It's coming in thick. The cold weather is hitting us hard, but it's up and down. Some days it's like -5 already, and some days it's like, oh, it's not bad. It's only 5. In Canada, we do Celsius. How's the weather still with you? Is it already going down pretty much?
Yeah, it's a little chilly, although it's just like it's 60 one day Fahrenheit, and then it's like 30s, 40s the next day. So I don't know. The weather's giving me a little bit of whiplash, but I wish I had snow like you guys. That's like legit hockey.
Yeah, I love snow, but also with some people don't know I'm dealing with neuropathy, so it's not good for me anymore. I got to move south. Yeah. Hey, if anybody knows, get me a sports commentating job covering hockey. Let me know. I'll go right now to the anywhere warmer. All right, so Courtney's back on the show. She's covered the Capitals for NBC. You can find her on Twitter at Courtney L_caps. Wow. Before we get into, I grew up.
Let's talk Ovechkin. I know we got a whole bunch of other things to talk about, but the most important one.
I grew up in the 90s with my boys Chris and Cross. So I had to go crisscross and go backwards and flash my Ovi jersey backwards. Ovi's awesome. Ovi's a beauty. We're gonna talk Ovi. So hold on, fans, to that one. Hold on. There's wild stuff happening around the world. They're like wild, rabid Wolverines out there. They're biting people. And I'm talking about Brendan Lemieux. Of course, it looks like he pit Brady Tkachuk in the game versus the Senators and the Kings. There's even a brilliant cameo. I don't know who did it. This is hilarious. It's trending online. I'm going to put it on the website, jablamsports.com. This is episode 9, I think now, season 7. Oh my goodness. Somebody paid Gilbert Gottfried on Cameo to do a video. It's going viral of him doing Brady Tkachuk's post-game rant about how Brady Lemieux is a crazy guy and he needs to be suspended. And I think he deservedly should. Looks like he bit him. Oh my God, is everybody just biting people? I remember the fight a couple of years ago, people bit. I don't care what people say. I still love Brad Marchand. He likes licking people. My goodness. Courtney, first off, what did you think? You kind of might have seen what happened and...
I don't understand. Listen, like, seen a lot of hockey games, played in some hockey games. Like, at what point in the game do your emotions have to be going where, like, you think, let me bite somebody? Mm-hmm. Like, I also think probably, like, they're not thinking at that point, right? It's just like a reaction. Yeah. But, like, you can't go around biting people. You can't bite people on the playground. You can't bite people in the office. Like, why are these players biting people and licking people? Like, you can't do that. We even had a couple years ago, this was a big no-no too, here in Washington when Garnet Hathaway spit on somebody. Yeah. Like, you can't, like, what are these guys thinking? Like, you can't do that in public or in normal society. So why are they doing this on the ice? I don't get it. Like, something to me, like, when a player goes that far over the edge, something really nasty must have been said or done. I don't know.
Yeah, it totally. I actually like it when those players, Sean Avery in front of the net in Martin Brodeur, like waving this thing. I was like, that's crazy cool. I like it. I don't care what it is. It's interesting. I didn't mind that much the Brad Marchand licking thing. He's a mind game. It's a mind game. You're playing mind games, but
gets under their skin. Yeah,
it's a mind game, and that's what they're doing. That's like the post game commentary. I love some coaches like Tortorella and some of them throwing things out there to play mind games, either for your team or backing off the media for your team or players on the ice or players in post-game commentary. Mind games, playoff series, mind games. I like that. I like that part. But sometimes you take it too far. Do people know COVID is still going on? Don't go licking people. Don't go biting people. Don't go spitting people right now. Oh my goodness.
Wherever. Like, I just like, that's what I'm saying. Like what in the game made it escalate to that point where you thought that was a way to get back at somebody or like retribution or to get, I don't understand it. But I also know, like, we've seen this even with hits, right? Like, hockey's such a fast game and these players have to think so fast, or they don't think, right? Yep. Because the game is moving at such a fast speed that they do something that's just like a reaction, I feel like, at that point, where they're not even thinking about what they're doing. It's just they're in the moment, they're feeling something, so they react towards it. Yeah, it's so funny too, because when just talking about this, there is a list and a history of biting in the NHL, apparently. Yeah. And I'm even going through like some of these names, and I forgot about some of these, like that it's actually happened. Andrew Shaw in 2015. Yeah. That there is a quote unquote history of biting in the NHL. I don't get it.
Yeah, please stop biting people. You guys aren't pit bulls. I got bit by a pit bull or whatever when I was a kid, and it freaked me out because I didn't think it was gonna do. I was like, hey, nice dog, and then I was freaked out and scared of dogs for like 4 years. So that was scary. I got my rabies shots too, so I'm good. But what do you think? I like they did the statement. The NHL player safety issued. Los Angeles Kings Brendan Lemieux has been offered an in-person hearing via Zoom for biting Ottawa's Brady Tkachuk. Time and date to be announced. And that usually means that he possibly could get 5 games, possibly could get more. Yeah. What do you think he should get? What do you think they're going to give him?
Well, it's interesting too, because even as I was like reading some of this stuff, like a lot of the players in the history of biting in the NHL, can't believe we were even saying that. Not a lot of the players were suspended. Not a lot of them got a suspension for that, but I think just the way that the NHL is moving, even with the hitting and kind of the unsportsmanlike conduct stuff that we've seen, I guess, in the last couple years, I think they're trying to get that part out of the game, right? And to me, there's like no room. Like what? Like,
yeah.
Why bite? Like I said, you don't bite somebody on the playground. Like that's not an appropriate course of action to take when you're mad at somebody.
Yeah.
But I do get it. We all get heated. We all get upset in a moment. I think he's going to have to get a suspension only, I feel like, to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. And I mean, it hasn't happened in a while now. I think the last one was 2015, Andrew Shaw, but it still happens, right? So I think just to kind of get this like nonsense out of the game. So like you said, with an in-person or Zoom person meeting, probably is going to be a suspension.
Oh yeah. I think it's going to be 5 games.
5 games. I think 3. I think 3 is a fair number.
Okay.
Like he didn't take his like stick and two-hand somebody or take his skate, right? Like, he bit somebody. Like, it's just like, you just don't do that. You don't spit on people. You don't bite on people.
It's in my opinion, it's very, you did it and you got it. Like, that's all. I don't like it when they're on the fence with a lot of things. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you meant to do it or you didn't mean to do it. That's the other thing I don't mind. Like, if you did it.
Like the intention. You did it.
You did it. If you high stick the guy, it's a penalty. Yes, you meant to stick lift. Whatever.
Right.
You did it. It's a fine. It's a suspension.
Guilty.
So, let's move on. In Montreal, of course, we all know Les Canadiens is a word that you must say, apparently. I will get into this as I'm talking. They let go, of course, general manager Marc Bergevin. Then they brought in ex-general manager of the New York Rangers, Jeff Gordon, now hired as the executive vice president of hockey operations. Courtney, let me ask you this. Must the general manager of the Canadiens be French-speaking?
I wish I could call my dad to have him answer this as an ex-Montreal Canadian, because he played his rookie season there. And the stories that I hear of his time in Montreal, and he played there way before I was born in the beginning of his career, but Montreal is a hard place to play in, right? I mean, the pressure there, we've seen what's happening with Carey Price, what happened with him in the beginning of the season. Yeah. I struggle with this because I feel like it is part of the identity and the culture of the Montreal Canadiens, of what they represent, right? There's no team in the NHL like them that is so rich in the culture and the history of the game, and that French speaking is part of it. Yeah. But then also, who are you missing out on that are amazing people and amazing GMs and knowledgeable hockey people that could benefit your organization that don't speak French?
Yeah.
There are things and there are tools out there for people to learn how to speak a second language, which people could obviously do in their spare time. I mean, hello, there's so many apps and things that you can do now. That's a tough one for me, because I know how rich that culture is, and the fan base, and that everything that surrounds the Canadiens in Montreal and Quebec. And so that's a tough one for me, because I also feel like I said, like, you're missing out on a pool of talented people that could really help your organization by just having that one thing as a qualification on the resume or checkbox.
Yeah, I love that, what you said. And the word we're looking for is, are they trying to be inclusive? And Courtney, we talked about this before I started recording the podcast. One reason why I love hockey so much is because of my background, right? It's because my grandfather was Russian. Why I love certain players, why I grew up in the 90s, and maybe I didn't love the Maple Leafs as much as I loved the Russian Five. I said it before we started recording. When I was a little kid, and I wish I was a play-by-play guy, and I even told my teachers doing sports journalism, Larionov, to Kozlov, to Konstantinov, to Fedosov, to Fedorov, to Boyarinov, he scores! Like, it excites me to say that as a kid, and thinking my name is a part of what could be the future. And I connect with again, my parents, and I speak at home Serbian. I connect with Milan Lucic, and there's other players, and nobody knows too well that Joe Sakic is Croatian, Ed Jovanovski is Serbian, and the list goes on. And I know, and I follow. I'm glad. I want to buy an Alex Nedeljkovic jersey because he's of Serbian descent, and he was phenomenal in the playoffs. So again, when you're bringing in those communities, you bring in those people. Yeah. So if you don't hire, and you're not hiring certain people that aren't French speaking, or they don't have a certain look, or they're not, maybe because they're only a male and not a female or something, you're not being inclusive of people that might have the opportunity to be better at that role.
And qualifications, right? Yes. Like, just that's like any job. Like when you apply for anything and on a resume and you're like, well, shoot, I don't have that. I'm not going to apply. Yeah. Right. And it might just be like one thing on there. Yeah. Like, but I understand that part of the Canadiens and why they've had that for so many years.
Yeah. And I love that too. That's the other thing. I do love that.
It's so cool, right? Because there's no other team in the league that has that. Yeah. I mean, like when you go to games, there's no other arena in the league that is like Bell Center at all, with everything that they do with the dual languages. Just there's nothing like it. But I think it's time though to be inclusive.
Yeah, it is time.
I think it's time.
And again, you can have those people and just give some more opportunities to a little bit of everybody. And shout out to my people at TDS. They do a great job there in Montreal and in the Quebec community with their sports coverage and everything. It's great. So let's talk why I brought you on the show. And I'm so excited. I threw my my amazing all-star classic, like my virtual is like blocking out my Ovi here figurine, and I broke the stick. The stick broke. I'm so angry now. But he's awesome. He's like, Ovi's awesome. And first off, the beauty that is Alexander Ovechkin, he's just one goal behind right now Leon Draisaitl. Leon has 20. Ovi has 19 goals. So the first question is, could Ovi win the Maurice the Rocket Richard trophy for the league's best scorer this year?
I think so. And I think when you look at Ovechkin, I think he's off to the best start that we've ever seen from a 36-year-old in NHL history. I mean, if you would have asked me pre-season starting if Ovechkin would have 19 goals through 22 games, I'd be like, no way. If you would even ask me before the season, does Alex Ovechkin have a chance of catching Gretzky? I would have said no. But the season that he is having, and yes, it's going to taper down, right? Like, he's on fire. This isn't sustainable. I don't think he's going to have a 70-goal season like he's on pace for. It's just not realistic. You've got the Olympics. He's going to be playing if the Olympics happen over in China. You've got just like the winter doldrums and the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of a season. But if he continues to play the way that he is right now, I do believe that I think he can win the Rocket. I think he's going to have, here's the thing, 50, 60 goal season, I realistically think for Ovechkin. 50 is what I would love for him to get. And I think that the way that he is playing, that is a realistic goal. Not 70. He's not going to get 70 goals. But 50, I think, is a good number for him to try to reach.
Yeah, he's playing phenomenal. 19 in 22 games. It's insane the way he's playing right now. He's scoring at like a better clip than he has in recent years. Why does the 36-year-old veteran, who everybody thought was going to slow down years ago, continues to score like at a 26-year-old goal rate, or technically even better than he was there? He looks even better. Yeah. He's finding new ways to score. I don't even know how.
I think it's a couple things. I think the Caps obviously have dealt with a lot of injuries and COVID and a lot of things, have been playing a ton of young guys throughout their lineup this season. But I think when you look at the line of Ovi, Kuznetsov and Wilson. Like, I think he loves playing with Kuznetsov. They can speak Russian to each other, fellow countrymen. And I think when you look at that line is built like any one of the top lines in the NHL, right? You've got Ovechkin, the goal scorer. You've got Kuznetsov, the brilliant playmaker, and he's having a fantastic year this year. And then you've got Wilson, who also has a great touch of the net, but also is that hitter, that tough guy that's going to be gritty in the corners.
You're being nice about Wilson, but
I am. I'm being kind to. Yes, you're right. I'm just being nice about Tom Wilson.
It's okay.
I think one observation I have with Ovechkin is I don't think he's hitting guys as much just randomly, and hitting takes energy, right? And you hit. I think he's hitting more with the purpose. So he's saving a little bit more of his energy than just like run and gutting guys. He'll do it to spark energy either for him or for his teammates. So I've noticed that he's not just taking those like random, trying to run guys over in the corner. So I think he has more energy. His line when they're together, Kuzi and Wilson, I think has helped him tremendously. And then I do think this is a big one. Playing in front of his family and his young son, Sergei. Sergei now is coming to the games. He's watching from the glass. He's throwing his hat for hat tricks. He's fist bumping him. And I think as a dad, I think he's really enjoying having his son watch and have these memories of his kid playing. I wish I had those memories. My dad retired when I was like 4, so I don't have a lot of memories, but I wish I did, right? And so I think that I could see that how that could kind of spark this new, like, I want to do this like for my kids and just having that fun kind of back in the game. So I think it's a bunch of different things for Ovechkin that are kind of aligning and making him have the season that he is.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. He has the opposite of a dad bod. It's the sports dad mindset. I remember when Maple Leafs, Mikhail Grabovski had his kid, and he played amazing that year. It was like, is he staying up late at night, or is his wife helping him with that? And he's just enjoying life now, and that his kid's born. I'm like, all right, that's cool. We'll take it. Mikhail Grabovski's playing better for the Leafs. That's great to see. And lastly, Ovechkin is going to beat the Great One, right? The Great Eight should be considered the Grade 8 one. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a change of the Grade 8 nickname, but he's got to beat him now, right?
Like I said earlier, if you would have asked me at the beginning of this season if he was going to beat Gretzky, my answer would have been no way. However, I was doing the math. Yeah. If he scores, let's say he has a 50-goal season this year. Yep. That means for the next 4 seasons, he only has to score 24 or 25 goals. Yeah. Like this season, if he can continue this pace, has put him on the map to beat Gretzky. And I'm confident that he can get to that 50 mark. And if he gets more, that's even less goals that he has to score in his next 4 seasons, right? So I think like this season is like it, because if he doesn't score 50 and he tapers off and he only scores 4 more goals, knock on wood, I hope that's not true. It's going to be tough for him to make those, to reach the 800 and whatever that Gretzky has. But I was like doing the math. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, if he gets 50 this season, absolutely he will beat Gretzky. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So just get 50, Ovi. No big deal. Just score 50 goals.
Peanuts. You're scoring almost 82 per 82. So like, just get 50. You can relax. Take a vacation somewhere in there. Go to Russia, chill with drink some vodka, win some gold medal. Maybe let Canada win or US, and you can whatever. But
get 50. No big deal.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. I said before COVID that he was gonna do it, and I still think
really,
because of before COVID, I was like doing the numbers. I'm like, I still think he can. I still think he can. And man, what would his numbers be if there were no lockouts?
I know.
And if there was no COVID? Oh my goodness, and he plays in this era, which is now opening up the offense. The offensive numbers are going higher now. But he plays in this era, which is much harder than in the offensive era that Gretzky and Lemieux and those guys played in. Like, the defensemen's, like, I love Larry Murphy and some of those guys, Ron Francis and all those guys, but they would not have put up that many numbers, that great numbers, if it wasn't for that offensive era. So,
and that's crazy too, right? Like Ovechkin is 36 and he's got 19 goals in 22 games when he's playing against a younger and much faster league, right? Every team, every season is trying to get younger and faster. And now here you've got Ovi 36 clicking at a 70 goal season pace, but he's not. I don't think he's not going to get 70 this year. Let's just go for 50, Ovi.
I just want to see Ovechkin do this. And then at the age of 44, when he's like Zdeno Chara, he's still hitting people like a bull in the corner. And he's still chipping in 20 goals during the season. And we're still loving him. He's bald now. His kid is like growing up and everything. He's getting ready for his kid to play for the Capitals organization, drafted.
Yeah.
And this guy is still putting in pucks like from a beauty at the power play point. Oh my goodness, that would be
I wouldn't be surprised. but he needs to finish out a good year this year in order for that to happen.
Again, you can find her on Twitter at Courtney L_caps. Courtney, thank you for joining me again.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a blast. And always a blast. It's always better when you wear an Ovechkin jersey. You should make that a regular thing.
Thank you. Have you ever wanted a one-stop weekly shop for expert analysis on every single NHL team? Look no further than jablamsports.com. We've had guests from James Sapolsky, Ardo Cal, and yes, even Dennis Bernstein shows up monthly. We are a fun hockey community bringing everyone together. Find us wherever you get your podcast and type in JABLAM Sports. That's Jablam Sports. Our website is, yes, you've called it, jablamsports.com. Go download and subscribe right now. You can also find us on socials at Jablam Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm Peter Rojanov saying, puck you later. For this week's Team ISO, on the panel are Scott Powers. He's the Blackhawks reporter for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at @ByScottPowers. Welcome to the show, Scott.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Also back in the show is Joe Brand, studio host covering the Blackhawks on WGN Radio. You can get him on Twitter at Joe_Brand1. Joe, welcome back.
Peter, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, all right. So in episode 1 of season 7, the overall consensus was 5th in the division, maybe squeaking into the playoffs. And the Hawks, obviously, they're struggling. So my first question is, man, Scott, was it all on Jeremy Colliton?
No, I think it's difficult to place all the blame on him. You know, it's you look at the goaltending and some of the way, defensively, and even now some of the, the problems that they're having under Derek King, it lack of scoring, and they weren't exactly lighting it up with Colliton either. So I think there were some issues under Jeremy Colliton, and I think some of the vibe and some of just how the team was feeling was associated with it. There was pressure to win, and I think everyone knew that Colliton's job he was fighting for, and they certainly had a lot of other things going on with the Kyle Beach lawsuits and just everything going on with the organization at the time. Like it was a heavy time, and it still is heavy in some ways. I think making the coaching change made a lot of sense. They were really bad out of the gate, and there wasn't. That was their best option. And bringing in a new coach kind of changed the vibe a bit. And he's working on changing some of the systems and somewhat what they're doing. But they're still struggling, and some of it's got to be on the players too. Like it just, Jonathan Taves not to have a goal through 21 games, or Dominic Kubalik struggles, or Kirby Doc's, offensive struggles, and, pretty much the entire lineup right now, not producing outside of a few guys like that. That has to be on the players more than coaching. So I think everyone thought, most people assumed that this was going to be a better team than what it was. Maybe a borderline playoff team just because how deep the Central potentially was going to be. But I don't think anyone foresaw them being this bad and this far out of the race. And the season's not over, but they've certainly put themselves in a hole, and they need to get some things correct for them to get out of that hole. So we'll see what impact coaching has on that. And but yeah, I think it's pretty difficult just to place in Colliton at this point.
I grew up obviously Toronto, watching the Maple Leafs. Derek King, he was a pretty gritty player. Just like in Rockford, how the interim replacement, Derek King, now behind the bench for the Hawks, how is he working so far, Joe?
Well, I think the main thing that Derek King brings to the table is strong communication with the players. The players have been very vocal about that, how they enjoy the way he just kind of relays information to them, keeps information straight. I think Riley Stillman said he's going to call a spade a spade. You basically saw the response that the team had once the coaching move was made. They win their first 4 games underneath him. And, you know, that was one of the main criticisms about Jeremy Colleton was the communication wasn't as strong as it should have been. And then Derek King takes over. All of a sudden, the Hawks start winning some games and nothing can go absolutely wrong. Now, the honeymoon's a little bit over. This team is starting to show its true colors again. And that's just kind of what makes a loss to the San Jose Sharks last night, 2-0, a little bit more apparent with how much of a rough start this team got off in the beginning. But, you know, Derek King's been a breath of fresh air. He's, I don't want to say a total polar opposite of Jeremy Colleton, and that's not what makes him a breath of fresh air, but this is a former player that really knows how to relate to his players. He definitely seems to keep things at ease. That was like the main message he wanted to get across when coming into the position. And I think Derek King's role in this whole coaching change is a big aspect of it too, because this isn't a guy that was fighting for a head coaching spot in the NHL. He made it very clear that this was never his main goal. He was going to take advantage of it if it came to him, but he wasn't going to go searching for it. And that's exactly what happened. So you got a guy that just understands his role right now. He's taken a lot of pressure off the players. And the team has responded, but you know, they do have a lot of offensive struggles like Scott mentioned. And it's just really taken some time for this team to play a full 60 minutes. It kind of happened last night in San Jose, but a really good goaltender and James Reimer put an end to that. So you're seeing this team level out a little bit more, but they still need to make some much bigger strides if they still want to continue any playoff aspirations.
Yeah, Scott may have mentioned in his article about the offensive woes. So I'll jump ahead to my questions and go straight to the first guy, the cat, Alex DeBrincat. He's bringing it, having a hell of a season. 12 goals so far. I think I'm going to do a walk-in right now in 21 games. On pace for almost 50 goals a season. So basically, my question is, Scott, is he the next Bobby Hull?
Alex DeBrincat's a really nice player, and I think he's continued to evolve, you know, where I think they're his size brought a lot of questions to the table, him being drafted, but we knew he could score, and there were certainly some doubters whether he'd translate to this level, but he's proven that, whatever level he's at, and obviously, especially the NHL now, that he can score at a high pace. But it's been more than the scoring, like you look a lot of the advanced statistics about possession and slot passes and entries and defensively too. He's become a better back checker and forward checker, and he's just become more of a complete player. And I don't think anyone foresaw that coming, he was a steal in the second round for just because his goal scoring ability, but he has a potential, and he is becoming a star player. And he's going to cost the Blackhawks a lot of money here in the future, but someone you can build around, where the Blackhawks have some holes and they certainly need to fill, especially, depending on where Cannon Taves' future is going. But DeBrincat's a piece that you can look at, and for another, he's only 23 years old still, for another 8-9 years, that you can really bank on him being that player. And you put the right players around DeBrincat, I think you can have something. So to be able to, to get that piece that in the second round is, like I said, a steal. But I think the bigger deal than even the goal scoring is just the evolution of his game, and how he is going to be that two-way player and bring so much more to the table for them.
He looks like a breath of fresh air for that offense that they truly need, and they're going to need to find it. Of course, they're like third last in the league in scoring. With 45, I'm counting, my mouth's not very good. I think that's almost half the goals just by Alex himself. So they traded in the offseason Janmark to the Vegas Golden Knights. Suter, of course, signs the bad guys. Oh, my God. And then Kubalik just needs to struggle and finding his offense. So if they're looking for offense, where is Kubalik's offense, Joe?
That's who it's got to come from. It's got to come from, I hate to say that, like Dominic Kubalik, Jonathan Toews, and Kirby Dach are depth guys, because they're not. But right now it's been Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, and Brandon Hagel. But even Patrick Kane's slowing down a little bit. I think 1 point in his last 5 games. So that's kind of been the biggest problem with the Hawks right now, is just the overall offense, especially 5-on-5. But now the power play has been struggling too. As we record this, I think they've capitalized on 1 out of their last 30 power plays. So that was something that had been working very well at the beginning of the year. The special teams was almost the saving grace of this team getting off to such a bad start. And now, you're seeing a little bit of an improvement in 5-on-5, but it's still not enough. And then with the power play struggles too, and the Hawks have been dealing with this for a long time, that snowball effect of having trouble scoring on the power play. And then that just leads to more frustration. And it's almost one of those, coinciding things. If the power play struggles, it's harder to turn that around the more it continues to struggle. So you'd hate to see the Hawks get in that kind of hole like that. But yeah, Dominic Kubalik I think it's a combination of being a little snake bitten and maybe just putting a lot of pressure on himself. Kirby Dach's an interesting one, because I thought he got off to a really good start the first couple of games this year. And now, since being moved up to that first line, I know he's been moved down to the second line too, but once Derek King came in, he put him up with Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat. And then he got involved in the power play. So it was a lot of responsibility on this young guy, but you do want to see him making those strides. I don't know. I'd hate to say that maybe it's too much responsibility for him, but again, you need a player like him to be able to adjust to that and handle that. And like Scott said, Jonathan Toews without a goal this year, that's rough to see. That's difficult to see. I think Jonathan Toews is giving it his all, like he always does. I think it has nothing to do with his work ethic or anything like that. But there's way too much scoring depletion from this team that should be having a lot more. And when you rely on the big playmakers like Kane, DeBrincat, and Hagel, that's not going to get you very far in the long haul of the season. It can help out for a couple of games, but the Hawks are seeing it right now where if everyone's not producing, it's a real uphill battle to win games. And that's exactly what we saw last night against San Jose.
I'm glad you brought up Kirby Dach. I caught a couple of games of the Blackhawks, and I noticed he is sneaky good. Like, there's a lot of different things to his game that I didn't notice just by like keeping an eye on where he is on the ice and all the little things. He's really good. Scott, you mentioned in a great article that, of course, they need scoring, and its potential is there. It's still growing, and that's in Hawks' top prospect, Lukas Reichel. He went down playing for the Rockford Ice Hogs, and similar kind of to the Dach injury, the previous, before the last year, I guess. What, just going to Reichel, what offense could he have brought to the team this year, and what is his potential?
Yeah, I guess one, we'll see on what the injury is. We probably won't know until more tomorrow, where he went pretty hard into the boards and had to be helped off the ice. So we'll see if it's a concussion or something more, or obviously concussion can be pretty serious too. So we'll see the status of him. But he's a lot more skilled than, he's probably most skilled. Definitely is the most skilled prospect they have in the pipeline. And, he's played in Germany and really flourished over there. And, he played in the World Championships last year, and he played for the national team really well. And, I think Derek King even mentioned when he was coaching for Rockford and he got a chance to coach, he coached Reichel in the rookie term to begin the season, that you just don't see that type of skill come through Rockford or their prospects in a while, even with guys like Dach and DeBrincat, Dach spent a few games in Rockford just because he was conditioning, but DeBrincat never played in Rockford, so a lot of your top prospects don't even spend time in the AHL. So for Reichel to go down there, and their big thing was just getting him accustomed to North America, having played in Europe for so long, and he had a hat trick and he leads them in points, and they just want to be extra patient, and with this type of team, like, you'd hate to bring a 19-year-old up and put too much expectation on him and put too much pressure on him. And If he's healthy, I imagine he goes the World Junior Championships this year, and he could play for Germany in the Olympics too. So that they have some time to be patient and kind of ease him into it. And part of it's contract status too, whether they want to burn the first year. And I guess it kind of depends on where the Blackhawks are in the standings. But Reichel's the one piece when you look at, they've promoted some guys like Doc and Hagel in the last couple of years, but, behind them, when you look at the young players, especially with them trading Boquist at this point, that I think Doc is, Doc and then Reichel. Those are the guys that are looking for the future, the guys down the line. And like Joe was saying, that, Doc has a lot of those attributes that you like. And right now it's putting them together and finishing. And, he'll have a couple nice moves and then just not finishing or not get the puck to the right guy or just something just not clicking yet. But the fact that he can do a lot of those things, I think, gives the Blackhawks a lot of hope. Eventually it does click. And with Reichel, so far, all the early signs are that he could be something special. He could be a top six, another top six piece they can build around. And, they've been playing him at center. Just to be a little bit deeper, down the middle too. So for Reichel to be 19 and, for him to be this far ahead, all right, I think the Blackhawks are pretty optimistic about his future.
Yeah, he looks like he's going to be a good addition, and hopefully the injury is not too bad. All right, before you guys go out, I wanted 2 quick answers on the off-season questions that I had. They had obviously many off-season changes, and of course, one was the big shocker between the pipes, bringing in, big Marc-Andre Fleury, the reigning Vezina winner, and of course 3-time Stanley Cup champion. I can't recall watching the NHL playoffs without seeing the Flower in spring. So why isn't, I already thought, okay, the Blackhawks should probably make the playoffs if they have Flower between the pipes. Why isn't it working, Joe?
Well, are you saying it's not working overall or with Marc-Andre Fleury?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Maybe it seemed like the beginning of the season wasn't. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's now. Tell me I'm seeing something wrong, I guess.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong. Marc-Andre Fleury maybe didn't get off to the best start that he would have liked to, or the team would have liked to. But, the defense didn't really help him out much either. And that's kind of something that changed when Derek King took over. There were a lot less, 2-on-1s, 2-on-0s, just a lot more making it difficult for the other team to enter into the Hawk zone. But on top of that, Marc-Andre Fleury has been playing a little bit more consistently. He also had a very good game yesterday against San Jose. Little tidbit, he's now 2-3-0 on his birthday, suffering the loss last night. But, the Marc-Andre Fleury thing was definitely the most shocking of the offseason moves, mainly because Marc-Andre Fleury was available. It's not so much like, the Hawks went out and got a goaltender. If Marc-Andre Fleury is available, you're going to go for him. And I still like that move by the Hawks. It kind of puts all the depth guys that they had in their system with Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia in a rough spot, because they had already been fighting for spots with Kevin Lankinen up there. But again, if the reigning Vezina Trophy winner's available, you got to pounce on it. And I think it's just any struggles of the Hawks getting to the playoffs is an overall team struggle. It's Everyone hasn't been perfect, and nobody has been perfect. So there's blame to go around all around. But even when things were going right, everyone was pitching in as much as they could, but there were still things that they needed to get past to have sustained success. And that's what we're still kind of waiting to see from the Hawks. And it'll be interesting to see what this team looks like a month from now, if they end up going into selling mode, and, what that means for Marc-Andre Fleury. Would he like to be moved? What teams would he be willing to go to? Because he was really comfortable in Vegas. And I think that was another shocking aspect of the whole thing, because he wasn't even planning on getting moved from there. So a lot of question marks. And, unfortunately, we went into this season with a lot of question marks, but the majority of them hopefully focusing on a playoff team. And right now they've dug themselves in a pretty big hole. It's still possible to dig themselves out of it, but a lot of hard work is going to need to be done. And, Marc-Andre Fleury is a really easy guy to root for. He's just always so positive. He's fun to cover. He's fun to watch in practice. gives a lot of great quotes after the game. He seems to be the perfect locker room mate. So, you hope that the Hawks can turn these things around and get to the playoffs and watch Marc-Andre Fleury shine.
Yeah, he does shine in the playoffs. All right, so going more to that, you said it's not Fleury's fault, and it could be the defense. So, Scott, let me tell you, I know obviously a lot of Hawks Nation were sad, and some of them may be upbeat about the future when the backbone of the team, Duncan Keith, left to Edmonton. Are they really then missing that two-time champion, stalwart veteran back there?
No, and I think, if you look at a lot of the analytics, that Duncan Keith was potentially part of the issue that was the last few years, and he wasn't the same player. And I know he's having a lot more success in Edmonton, and part of it's, I don't think there's much responsibility there for him. Like you're playing him in more of a role that's suited for his age and where he has in his career. And Edmonton is certainly a deeper team right now, at least just maybe a better team, maybe not deeper, but certainly a better team at in the front of their lineup. And I think using Duncan Keith correctly, I mean, the guy's he's a freak athlete, and he can do some things. Even as old as he is, just that he's still an elite athlete. So I think it was more about use and utilization. The Blackhawks, what Seth Jones has been a bit of a mixed bag, and certainly has helped them win some games. Certainly, other games have been a little bit more. Just not as many positive plays. I think the thing that with Seth Jones, like they needed a number one defenseman, and Seth Jones fills a lot of those, fills a lot of the criteria for number one defenseman, and he may be fine for as long as they have him. I think the biggest challenge is the Blackhawks gave up a lot for Seth Jones, and that's always going to be the comparable for how his career pans out. And they basically banked on themselves making the playoffs this year by acquiring Seth Jones. They gave up the higher draft pick for this year. They gave up Adam Boquist, and then they gave up the draft pick for next year, and it's only top 2 protected. So, if this season ends up how it is, and the Blackhawks would have been selecting in the top 10, and they don't have that pick, it's a major. It's a major hurdle for them to overcome. That's how you rebuild when you lose, when you don't make the playoffs, and especially among the worst teams, you rebuild with that draft pick. And for the Blackhawks to give that up in the Seth Jones trade, and then Seth Jones is at $5.4 million now, and it jumps up to 9.5. So there's more weight on that contract going forward. So I think this was the year that Seth Jones really needs to perform well, and the team needed to as well. And there are positives in Seth Jones' game. Whether he'll ever live up to 9.5 million, that's it's sort of unfair for him to, that's the contract the Blackhawks gave him, and what they thought of him. But I don't think Duncan Keith was so much the issue as is they needed a more more complete number one defenseman. I think Seth Jones is close to that. We'll see if whether the Blackhawks can build a defense around him, because I think they do need the other pieces where Seth Jones is going to probably carry as much as they hope, at least with that sort of price tag.
You can find them on Twitter at @BuyScottPowers for Scott, and for Joe at Joe_Brand1. Ah, man. Well, it's not the goaltending, and maybe Seth Jones needs to be a little bit better for that big trade. It was fun breaking down the Hawks with you, gentlemen.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Peter. Have a blast.
Thanks to all my guests today. Courtney, always bringing a smile to my face. Wow. We talked for a while before and after our record, and she's doing well. I'm great to hear that. Also to Scott Powers and Joe Brand. They really have a team dealing with many problems in Chicago there, but at least a goaltender isn't one. I want to give a special thanks to Juan on our social media team. He's been helping us a lot over the last year and a half. I want to thank you, Juan, for all your blood, sweat, and tears. He might not be on the team too long, and I really value his friendship and everything he's helped with us. Next week, we'll be discussing the Philadelphia Flyers on the Team ISO, their hot start, and cold play the last while. If you've enjoyed anything you've heard in this episode or don't, please tweet at me or even our guests. You can follow me on Twitter at PBojaranov or the entire team at Jablam Sports. You can use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. If you want to also contact us on our website, go to jablamsports.com/contact. Also, you can find all our info for all our guests and our podcasts, for even game notes for each episode, including this one. You'll get guests' info and links to all the things we mentioned on this show. We even have weekly content articles. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. And of course, click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends you know. Please and thank you. Jablam Sports Hockey is your one-stop weekly shop for every expert analysis on every single team. We are a fun community, bringing everyone together. Follow us on Facebook. Thank you, everyone. And to every one of our listeners, we're giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.